There was a woman who apologized for everything, for speaking, for existing, for taking up space in a world that told her she was always too much or never enough. This is the story of how she learned that her voice was not a burden. It was her birthright. If you've ever made yourself smaller to make others comfortable, this story will change you. Maya Chen apologized 47 times on a Tuesday. She didn't know this, of course. She had stopped counting years ago. Apologizing had become as automatic as breathing, a reflex so deeply ingrained that she no longer noticed when she did it. Sorry, can I just squeeze past you? Sorry, I have a question. Sorry, I know you're busy, but sorry for the long email. Sorry. The word had lost all meaning. It was just a sound she made before taking up space, before speaking. Before existing in a way that might inconvenience someone else. Maya was 34 years old. She had a master's degree in data analysis. She was brilliant at her job, meticulous and thorough. Her reports were always flawless. Her insights had saved her company millions, and no one knew her name. It started when she was 7 years old. Her father was a quiet man who valued silence above all else. Her mother moved through the house like a ghost, apologizing for every sound she made, every dish that clattered, every footstep on the stairs. Sorry, dear, her mother would whisper when she accidentally woke him. Sorry. Maya learned early. Loud girls were difficult girls. Girls who spoke their minds were problems. Girls who took up space were punished with silence, with disapproval, with the cold shoulder that lasted for days. So Maya made herself small. She learned to walk softly, to speak quietly, to apologize before anyone could be upset with her. By the time she was 12, she apologized for things that weren't her fault, for the weather, for other people's bad moods, for existing in the same room as someone who seemed annoyed. By the time she was 20, she had perfected the art of disappearing while still being visible. And by 34, she had become a woman who apologized for breathing too loudly in meetings. Her colleague Daniel noticed first. He sat in the cubicle next to hers and had worked with Maya for 3 years. He was kind, observant, and increasingly disturbed by something he couldn't quite name. One morning, he started counting. Sorry, could you pass me that file? 1. Sorry, I think there's an error in this report. 2. Sorry, can I use the printer? 3. By lunch, Daniel had counted 14 apologies. By the end of the day, 47. He said nothing, but the number haunted him. The next day, he counted again. 52. On the third day, he finally spoke up. Maya, he said gently, can I ask you something? Sorry, yes, of course, she said automatically. Why do you apologize so much? Maya blinked. What do you mean? You've apologized 8 times in the last 10 minutes, Daniel said. For things that don't require apologies, for asking questions, for doing your job, for existing in this office. Maya felt heat rise to her cheeks. I don't realize I'm doing it. I know, Daniel said. That's what worries me. That night, Maya couldn't sleep. She lay in bed, replaying the day in her mind, and for the first time in her life, she started noticing. She had apologized to the barista for ordering coffee. She had apologized to a stranger for standing too close on the subway, even though the stranger had stepped on her foot. She had apologized to her boyfriend Chris for being tired when he wanted to go out. She apologized for apologizing. The realization hit her like cold water. She had spent her entire adult life saying sorry for taking up space in the world. The meeting happened on a Thursday. Maya's team was presenting quarterly findings to senior leadership. She had done most of the analysis, weeks of work, late nights, meticulous attention to detail. But when it came time to present, her manager Richard stepped forward. Good morning, everyone, Richard said confidently. I'm pleased to share our quarterly analysis. Maya sat in the back of the room, watching as Richard presented her work, her graphs, her insights, her conclusions. He didn't mention her name once. At one point, the CFO asked a technical question. Richard fumbled, clearly not understanding the methodology. Maya raised her hand slightly. Sorry, I can clarify that, Richard interrupted. We used a standard regression model, nothing complicated. Actually, sorry, it wasn't standard, Maya tried again. We modified the algorithm to account for... Thanks, Maya, but I think I've got this, Richard said, not looking at her. He gave a vague, incorrect answer. The CFO nodded, satisfied. Maya sat back down, her face burning. She had apologized for trying to correct a mistake. She apologized for doing her job well, and no one had noticed. That evening, Daniel found her still sitting at her desk, long after everyone else had gone home. "You okay?" he asked. "Why didn't I speak up?" Maya said quietly. "I let him take credit for my work. I let him give the wrong answer, and I apologized while he did it." Daniel sat down across from her. "How long have you been doing this?" "Doing what?" "Making yourself small, letting people walk over you, apologizing for taking up space." Maya's eyes filled with tears. "I don't know how to stop." "Then learn," Daniel said. "Because, Maya, you're one of the smartest people I've ever met, and the world will never know that if you keep apologizing for it." The challenge started the next morning. Daniel appeared at Maya's desk with a small notebook. "Here's the deal," he said. "For the next 7 days, you cannot apologize unless you've actually done something wrong. If you apologize unnecessarily, you write it down. At the end of the week, we count them." "I don't know if I can do that," Maya said. "I didn't ask if you could," Daniel said. "I'm asking if you will." Maya stared at the notebook. It felt like a dare, like a test she was destined to fail. But something in her, something small and stubborn and tired of being silent, whispered, "Try." "Okay," she said. "I'll try." Day 1 was torture. Maya opened her mouth a dozen times and had to physically stop herself from saying, "Sorry." Each time felt wrong, like she was being rude, aggressive, demanding. When she asked a question in the team meeting, without apologizing first, her stomach twisted with anxiety. When she used the printer without asking permission, she felt like a criminal, but no one seemed to notice. No one got angry, the world did not end. By the end of day 1, she had slipped up 6 times, 6 unnecessary apologies written in the notebook. Daniel smiled when she showed him. 6 is better than 50. Day 3 was when things started to change. Maya was in a meeting when a colleague, Tom, interrupted her mid-sentence for the 3rd time. Normally, she would have said, "Sorry, let me finish," and then yielded the floor anyway. But this time, she stopped. She looked at Tom, and she said, clearly and calmly, "I wasn't finished speaking." The room went silent. Tom blinked, surprised. "Oh, sorry. Go ahead." Maya continued her point. No apology, no self-deprecation. Just her voice, steady and clear. When the meeting ended, Daniel caught her eye and gave her a small nod. She had not apologized, and the world had not ended. Day 5 was the hardest. Maya's boyfriend, Chris, called her while she was finishing a project. "Hey babe," he said, "want to grab dinner tonight?" "I can't," Maya said. "I need to finish this report." "Come on, you're always working," Chris said, an edge creeping into his voice. "Can't you just take a break?" Maya felt the familiar pull, the instinct to apologize, to make him feel better, to put his needs above her own. Instead, she said, "No, I need to finish this tonight." There was a long pause. "Wow," Chris said. "When did you get so selfish?" The word hit her like a slap. Selfish. For having boundaries. For not apologizing for her own priorities. "I'm not being selfish," Maya said, her voice shaking. "I'm being responsible." "Whatever," Chris said, and hung up. Maya sat at her desk, her hands trembling. Every instinct screamed at her to call him back, to apologize, to make it right. But Daniel's words echoed in her mind. "Why do you apologize so much?" She didn't call him back. Day 7 arrived. Maya walked into the office with the notebook. She had written down 11 unnecessary apologies over the course of the week, down from 47 on that first Tuesday Daniel had counted. But the real change wasn't in the number. It was in how she felt. She sat taller. She spoke more clearly. She no longer flinched before stating her opinion. That morning, Richard called her into his office. "Maya," he said, "I need you to redo the quarterly analysis. The CFO wasn't satisfied with the methodology." Maya looked at him calmly. "The methodology was correct. You presented it incorrectly." Richard's eyebrows shot up. "Excuse me?" I designed that analysis, Maya said, her voice steady. You gave the CFO the wrong explanation in the meeting. If you'd like, I can meet with him directly to clarify. Richard stared at her, clearly not used to this version of Maya, the one who didn't apologize, who didn't shrink, who knew her worth. I'll think about it, he said. Let me know, Maya said, and walked out. 2 weeks later, Maya was called into a meeting with senior leadership. The CFO wanted to discuss the analysis directly. Maya presented her work, explained the methodology, answered every question with confidence and precision. At the end of the meeting, the CFO leaned back in his chair. This is excellent work, Ms. Chen, he said. Why haven't we heard from you before? Maya smiled. I'm not sure, but you're hearing from me now. 3 months later, Maya received a promotion, her own team, her own projects, her name on the reports. Richard was transferred to a different department. Chris, meanwhile, had not taken well to Maya's new boundaries. He complained that she had changed, that she was difficult now, that she didn't care about his needs anymore. Maya realized something important. Chris had never loved her. He had loved the version of her that apologized for existing, the version that put his comfort above her own needs, the version that disappeared. She ended the relationship. It hurt, but not as much as she thought it would, because for the first time in her life, Maya knew her own worth, and she was no longer willing to shrink for people who couldn't handle her at full size. One evening, Daniel stopped by her new office. How are you doing? He asked. I'm good, Maya said, and she meant it. Do you still have the notebook? Daniel asked. Maya pulled it out of her drawer and flipped through the pages. 11 apologies the first week, 5 the second, 2 the third. This week, 0. You know what I realized? Maya said. I spent 34 years apologizing for being alive, and all it did was teach people I wasn't worth listening to. And now? Daniel asked. Now, Maya said. I'm done apologizing for taking up space, because I belong here. My voice matters, and I'm not going to whisper anymore. Daniel smiled. Good. Maya had believed that being small made her safe, that apologizing kept her from being a burden, that taking up less space would make people love her more. But she learned the truth. The world does not respect people who apologize for existing. It walks over them. It silences them. It forgets their names. Your voice is not a burden. Your presence is not an inconvenience. Your needs are not selfish. You do not need permission to speak. You do not need to apologize for having thoughts, opinions, or boundaries. You do not need to shrink yourself to make others comfortable. The people who love you, truly love you, will not ask you to be smaller. They will celebrate you at full volume. And the ones who can't handle your voice, they were never your people to begin with. Stop apologizing for being human. Stop apologizing for taking up the space you were always meant to occupy. Your voice was not given to you to be silenced. It was given to you to be heard. Have you been apologizing for existing in a world that should be grateful you're here? Think about it. You are not too much. You are not a burden. You are enough, exactly as you are. If this story gave you permission to stop apologizing, to speak louder, to take up the space you deserve, then subscribe to Tales by Cathie for more powerful stories that remind you of your worth. Stories that challenge you to grow. Stories that teach you it's okay to be seen. Stories that help you find your voice when the world has taught you to silence it. New stories every week, no apologies. Subscribe now, and let's walk this path together. Your voice is not a burden. It is your birthright.